Well, this is week 4 on our grace series. I don't know you've been if you have been dealt with in the same manner that I've been dealt with in the understanding of God's grace, which I told you from the beginning, we can chip at this thing for centuries, and I really don't believe that we'll ever take the tip of the iceberg off. Because grace is so multidimensional. I mean, you hear people when they can preach on grace, sometimes it's just grace in part, and they don't. And I'm not saying I'm preaching grace in the fullness either. I'm just saying they preach just one side of grace. Either grace saves you, and that's all you ever hear is about grace saving you, or grace empowers you, and that's all you ever hear is about grace empowering you, or grace teaches you, and that's the only thing. And that's not the case. Grace is so multidimensional that I don't think that we could ever use our finite minds that we have to ever unveil or uncover a total understanding of God's grace, especially when it pertains to our lives. God has done so much for us. God has went so far and so beyond for us. There's no way in this world that we would ever be able to repay God. Even if God was to lay out a way for you to repay Him, I don't think you would ever get to the end of that list. I hope you've enjoyed so far, but I still don't think we're done. So I'm gonna stay in this as long as God will allow me to stay in it. There is one thing that I have learned in over the 20 years of management, that being a leader, it is hard to express anything to anyone pertaining to what you're trying to instruct them on without first showing or identifying that you've been there, done that. Does that make sense? It's hard to go to someone and ask for someone for guidance in an area they've never experienced. They can't touch you in that area. That's one reason why I love to serve God, not you. Because He's my high priest, and He's touched everything that I could ever go through. So this morning, I feel it fitting. I've not been told no. I've not been put in check about it. So this morning, I'm going to probably do something that most of you aren't ready for. I would hope that in the past few weeks, you would have understood by now how to exemplify grace, how to show grace, how to give grace, and the purpose of why to show and to give grace. Because in the midst of what we're about to do this morning, my wife and I will be so transparent, because I don't. Number one, I want to ease some of you. Don't go trying to look for something on me and her, because it's there. Don't waste your time. You got better things. Go plant tulips or cook in the kitchen. Don't waste your time trying to dig up a skeleton out of our closets. We have skeletons, but we've learned, you know what, the closet's not the place for them, because every time I open the door, I got to see them. So I'd rather just put them out there and let you deal with them, because God's already dealt with ours. Now it's up to you to be able to deal. But I don't ever want you to think that we speak to you out of just a knowledge-based perspective. I want you to understand that when we speak to you out of the love and the compassion of our hearts. Because we understand. We've been there. We've done that. And you can finish that statement. We got the shirts. But before I get into it, I do know that I need to do this. And Tommy, I'll never give you these scriptures. We got tied up in a monitor. Ephesians 4:7. You don't even have to go there. This is a short one. Ephesians 4, verse 7. But to each one of us. Who? Now make it personal. Who? But to each one of us, grace was given according to the measure of Christ's gift. How many of you know that God never puts anything on you that He also does not empower you to do? So hear this again. But to each one of us, grace was given according to the measure of Christ's gift. He give you a gift. He give you grace. And by giving you grace, He's expecting you to carry out the gift by giving. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Ever seen that? Go to 1 Peter 4. Well, Tommy, you can go there. You just don't have to pull it up right yet. I think I wanted to put that somewhere. I think I need one of them wet things. This is something that you have to understand this morning. You are who you are by the grace of God, not by anything that you've ever done. If you are successful, it's because of God's grace. If you are healthy, it's because of God's grace. If you can sing, thank you, Jesus, for your grace that you give somebody else. If you can sing, it's because of God's grace. If you can play instruments, it's because I can pick on him because I know him. And that's my son. You can take all the college courses. You can read all the books. You can be instructed by all the finest art teachers out there. You can play instruments only because of God's grace. If I'd done that, some people would get offended, been mad. But you can't get offended. You have to deal with it. If you can walk, it's because of God's grace. I mean, we can keep going. I was like, God, that's going to be a long list. So I'm able to use a couple examples, and that's all the examples I want to. You can think of some others, I'm sure. You were probably going through a little chart in your mind. Some of the teachers already had it. One, if you can walk, and then it was why they can walk, where they can walk, what they. English scholars, you know how they are. Everything that you are is because of grace and not of anything you have done. You know, Moses even told the Israelites prior to crossing over, he said, don't put it in your heart that it's because of your righteousness that God goes ahead of you and wars for you. He said, don't get it mistaken. Don't think it's because of you that God is stepping out before you. He said, in fact, God is destroying them because of their wickedness. Not because of your righteousness, Boy, that hurts sometimes, don't it? I mean, you would really like to sit back and think that God is doing something for you because of what you done. And the whole time, in fact, Moses went on to say, you're a stiff-necked people. Man, y'all think pastors in today's era is rough. How'd you like to have been a congregant of old Moses? Huh? Don't you get high on yourself. But he ain't got nothing to do with you. It's all because of him. Don't you get excited. Don't you put yourself above. Remember, we talked about that. So that you're not looked at above measure. That you're not looked at above where you should be or who you really are. Because, I mean, that brings a lot in itself, too. Many of us would really like to think that God does something for us because we're so special. I mean, come on. Think about it. You really like to think that sometimes, that God done this for me because I am so special. I want to enlighten you this morning. Can I get on Moses' side of the river for a minute? I want to enlighten you. God did not reach back into his richness of heaven and create you. Did you know that? Instead, God stooped down to the lowest form of the earth and scooped up a handful of mud and formed you. I know you really like to think that you're, and listen, I don't want to get your hearts tore up. It's not that you're not special in God's eyes, because you are. The Bible says that you're the apple of his eye. The problem is, you think you're more special in your own eyes. Oh, you're special. You're special. But I think what this does to us, it causes us to miss God's grace. Because we become so self-centered that we forget that if it was not for the Lord on my side. The other part of that statement is this. It's not only did you not do anything to get what you have, and it's by God's grace, what you have done in the past, or what someone has done to you in the past, does not make you who you are. I just went against every psychologist out there. I just went against all the books that you've studied in school that told you that if you grew up in this environment, you were more likely to be that. You were a product of your environment. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's who you are. I'm here to tell you this morning, it is not who you are. Satan is a liar. All he wants to do is to steal, kill, and destroy. Everything that Satan tells you, you look at it the opposite way. If he says you're ugly, thank God I'm beautiful. Come on. Some of y'all needed some help. Are you with me? I'm taking you into something this morning because I want you to understand and I want you to know. Because I do not want anyone that ever comes to this church to ever feel or think of themselves more highly. Y'all know how to finish that. Or I don't want anyone to ever come to this house and ever leave thinking for 1 second that they are lower than what God created them to be. So for those of you that walked in this morning proud, shoulders kicked back, thinking you got the finest thing on, I don't like it. For those of you that came in with your head bowed low, thinking nobody's going to really I love it. You will never, ever be in a place in your life, ever, but that by the grace of God. Pastor, you don't know what I'm going through. It's the grace of God. So with that being said, if you need to take a couple of anxiety pills or some pills that's going to calm your nerves, or take some nice pills so you're not so hateful, take some sweet pills so you're not going to be so bitter. I mean, just whatever medication that you need to take right now, please take, okay? Debbie and I are going to tell you a little story. Because I want you to know we are only who we are. Because of God's grace. We're only where we are. Because of God's grace. We'll only be who we'll ever be because of God's grace. There was a time in my life that, not being brought up in the best circumstances or the best environment. So I'm going to debunk the product of your environment thing for you. Because you came this morning needing this. And I'm here to tell you that you're so far greater than you see yourself. And I'm not talking to the arrogant one. I'm talking to the one that is sitting in humility. The one that is sitting and thinking that there'll never be, or it can never happen, or it will never take place. That's who I want to talk to this morning. And I'm sure that most of us sitting in here has gone through something in our life. If I was a gambling man, I'd place bets on it that most of you are still carrying it. Either in your wallet, in your pocketbook, in your jacket, something. You're carrying it. My father was in church for a brief moment. But I can remember when he was. And how exciting it was to please my dad. He oversaw Royal Rangers. For many of you that don't know, it was a program for it was for the young kids, the young boys, basically. Missionettes was for the girls, but he watched over that program, and he developed that program for as much as I can remember. And I used to remember we were always the first ones at church, and we were always the last ones to leave the parking lot. Always. Because my dad not only went through that program with the young ones, but my dad also drove the bus for the church. The biggest reason of that was to bring the kids to church. See, a lot of you want to have a ministry, but you don't want Jesus. And he went through this program with these kids, and I'll never forget the first time that he lined these kids up front. And I'll never forget it. That was a milestone for me in my life. I wanted my dad to recognize me the way he recognized these other kids. So that was something that I put in my heart that morning at the church that I wasn't a part of because I wasn't of age. But I sat and watched. So in this little kid's heart, something was etched that day. Little did I know that my dad would become hurt by the church, and that my dad would walk away. And when my dad walked away, this was my dad. My dad said, "You better be clean before you came to Christ." That's how important being a Christian was to my father. He really put the weight on you. Don't you dare live like hell all week and go and clap your hands on a Sunday. He just didn't play that. Dad said, you serve God 100% with everything you got. That means you sacrifice your life. That means that you put all of the weight of the cross on your shoulders and you drag it. That was my dad. My dad loved the Lord. He wasn't about playing with God. But Dad walks away. And my dad's personality either drives him to live like hell 100% of the time or to be a saint 100% of the time. Needless to say, my dad went pretty hard. So for most of my, for the rest of my childhood, I remembered a drunken father, an abusive father, not only to the kids, maybe not physically, but extremely emotionally and mentally. Abusive to my mother, both physical and emotional. And that was the type of environment that I would grow up under as a young boy that wanted to please his father. So needless to say that through my childhood, I was always looking for something to do to make my dad smile or to say, I'm proud of you or good job. Well, I soon found out that serving God wasn't the way to have my dad pat me on the back. So I played the role. Oh, we went to church, like many of you. You'll go to church today. You go hang out with the boys and the girls tonight. Do your thing this week, whatever makes you feel good. So I turned because that's what I had modeled before me. That was the way to be a man. My dad worked all the time, worked a lot. So that's what I turned to. I worked all the time. I worked hard. I worked a lot. But all through my childhood, I tried to figure out what could I do to please my dad. I wanted my dad to say, I love you. I couldn't get that by the age of 18, so I decided that not only I needed an escape out of the household that I was growing up in an abusive relationship between my mother and father and the children, and the drunken stupors that he would stay in. I mean, there were times that we would go to church and we were scared to come home because we knew what was waiting on us. Sunday morning we were thinking about going to church, but Sunday evening when we went back for the second service, those of you that can't seem to get it to you that you can go twice in one day, we went twice in one day. And when we would be coming home, all we would think about was what Dad's predicament would be. And we knew. We were just hoping that maybe he was sleeping when we got there, so we wouldn't have to hear it. But then we would have to sit up all hours of the night, even while being in school, having to go and take tests and exams, and going to school just as tired as we could be, because we would sit up all night and listen to all of that, and then wonder why we couldn't get through school with flying colors. See, some of y'all could go to school that grew up in a peaceful environment, and man, you could just pick up on stuff because your heart was at peace, your mind was at peace. You could pass school with A's and B's. Some of you went to college. I've never seen inside of a college dorm. At the age of 18, I decided I'm joining the military because my sister met this guy. We won't get into all that. If you got time, stop by the office. I'd love to talk to you. But she met this guy that would soon become a father figure. Someone I looked up to, someone I loved to be around, and to this day, someone I respect and honor more than I ever did my own father. I joined the military because that's where David told me to go. I went into the Navy because that's where David told me to go. I became a welder because, boy, you need a trade. That's what David told me to do. So I went into the Navy, and sure enough, don't just travel the world. But I'm away from home. Life's good. I didn't have to hear any type of argument. Man, when I went to sleep, I could lay my head down and go to sleep. During Desert Storm, we were on the water for 9 months. I put my feet on the ground 2 days out of those 9 months. And I'll never forget the first day. I ran to a phone booth and I called home just to let everybody know that I was okay and everything's good. And I got to talk to my dad on the phone. Mama told me that he sat up for hours watching the news. He's seen everything that was taking place. And I was talking to him on the phone, and before we hung up, I heard my dad say it for the first time. I love you. Meant a lot. Man, was I mad. It took me to be away, in danger, and all my life to hear you tell me that over a phone. So I partied like it was 1999. And I partied hard. Matter of fact, when I met Debbie, I was in a place in my life that I was drunk all night and was high all day so that I could operate and do my job. Yeah, full-blown alcoholic, because that's all I wanted to do was drink. At the age of 22, 23 years old. But that's what I had modeled before me, so it was okay. Man, I went through women like it was my job. I went through women. Didn't care. I didn't care if it was one night, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. Didn't matter to me. I didn't care if I was with you for a year and had a couple in between. Didn't matter to me. I was good. That's what I had modeled before me. I know some of you are really tight right now. You can't handle this. But I'm letting you know, you'll never open a closet door on me. And I'm telling you this for a reason. You're not less than what God created you to be, no matter what you've ever done. Well, I ended up going to a bar one night, and, well, this is one of them playa nights, and I had one on my hip, one across the floor, and one waiting on me. All I wanted to know was who was going home first. She knew that I was playing 3 of them. She didn't care. I don't know if they can handle us or not. So me and my wife decided we was going to hook up. Here's the hotel I'm staying at. Bathtub full of beer, couple rooms, just re-enlisted. I'm good to go, 30 G in the pocket, I'm ready. Money, 30,000. Sorry. I expect everybody to keep up with that, but not most can. So anyway, me and my wife, we decided we'd get hooked up, and I have no clue what happened. I was drunk. But there was a note left on my pillow. I won't forget that. There was a note left, call me when you wake up. See, I went home, passed out. Gone. So we ended up hooking up the second night. By the 4th day into this thing, and trust me, I ain't love you. The 4th day into it, I said, we need to talk. She said, all right, here it is. Because, see, she was used to being hurt. And she said, I'm going to get you before you get me. That was her thing. So if I can go out and have a one-nighter and bust out, you can't hurt me. I'm gone. See you. See, y'all don't. You Christian people that came out born Christian, y'all don't understand that stuff. So y'all come out holy. Y'all come out in white robes and stuff. Like my sister. I mean, she didn't think I was going to go there. So in 4 days, I look at this woman and I said, I think I love you. Man, she looked back with such gratitude and welcomeness. Man, it made me feel excited. I knew that I had said something that was on target because she looked at me and never said a word. There was no, boy, you crazy? Have you lost your mind? I love you too. That would have been appropriate. I lost your, nothing. Said nothing. Man, when I got time by myself, I went, boy, what's wrong with you? You done lost your mind. Well, when I met her, little did I know, and I'm not telling y'all anything that she wouldn't tell you. I told her she may not have to speak. But I had to go on a little quick outing on the water. That quick outing was 6 months long, wasn't it? And no, matter of fact, we done workups first. We done workups, and it was the night you said you had doctor's appointment the next day. Was that the same time for the 6-monther, or was that right before the 6? So we done a little workup in the water. We call them gator squares when we were in the Navy. They just went out and done this with a boat. It was so exciting. She says, I got a doctor's appointment tomorrow. And I said, you okay? You all right? Yeah. And, well, she lied. Fibber. But she lied. Oh, it's nothing major. It's an outpatient surgery. Everything's okay. It's no worries. I said, okay. I said, I hope you're all right, and I'll see you when I get back. Well, I came back. Man, everything was good to go. We was rocking and rolling. Come December the 5th, I had to leave for 6 months. Now, I'd been on a couple of 6-month cruises, leaving a couple women in Norfolk. Anybody ever met Jody? Anybody know Jody? Because I'm looking for him too. But Jody got your girl and gone when you come back. See, we get them Jody letters. You know what I'm talking about. So I come back and I'm going, well, if she's here, great. If she ain't no big thing. Back on the street. I come back, she here. What? It was that love potion. Well, I'll come back and gone for 6 months, December the 5th. Come back on June the 6th, June the 5th. Get married July the 6th. Tried to get married July the 4th. Man, we were bright, weren't we? Man, we had it together. We said, hey, let's get married. It's July the 4th. Let's get married. We said, okay, well, ain't nobody open. Because, see, we just wanted to go ahead and do the handshake, do the handshake and be done with it, the $25 thing, amen, brother, man and wife, bye. So we had to reschedule our plans, and we got married July the 6th. And, well, in that time frame, God, I'm trying to pile a lot in here. In that time frame, we tried this thing called marriage. Anybody ever tried that? Anybody ever tried marriage? Just didn't go as planned. We got married off of lies and lust. Oh, we were compatible in the bedroom. Anything else outside of that, we were done. I told y'all couldn't handle me. Anything outside of that, we weren't compatible. Man, later on I would find out that even my brother-in-law, the monk in the back that don't ever do anything wrong, the monk back there, he would tell my sister, man, that boy, he talks to his wife something horrible. He didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew nothing. So my wife and I, we decided that we were going to try this marriage out, so we stayed married, and I'm going to try to give you a condensed version because I do believe that God wants to set you free. So for the first 12 years of our marriage, we hated each other. It was, I don't know, not too long ago, but it was a while back. She used to tell me I used to make her sick when I walked into the room, and she didn't have to see me. She just smelled me. And I said, I took a shower. I always smell good. She said, it wasn't that you stunk. I just knew it was you, and your aroma made me sick to my stomach. That's how much I hated you. I hated her so much that I would sit as a sinner on the couch when she went out with my kids, that God would put her in an accident but keep my kids. I would anticipate a phone call. I wanted the phone call. I hated her. One day I decided that enough's enough. We're done. So I packed my clothes and, man, I'm really condensing this. Let me back up a little bit on you. I don't want everybody to think I'm the bad one. I'll need to roll some dirt over there too. I'm going to rewind you, so just stay where we were at for a minute. That way you know where I'm at, okay? So when I come back, say, where was I? My wife, before I had met her, she had gone through an abusive deal as well. And broken homes. Not knowing which day Jody would be there or Johnny. Not really knowing who would be who and what. And there come a point in time that, well, somebody decided they were going to show up and they were going to hang out a while. And, well, when they hung out a while, they decided that they wanted to abuse the authoritative position that they carried in the home as a stepfather. And my wife was molested from the age of 7 years old up until the age of 16. I didn't know any of this until after we had been married for a while. There were just signs, and if I was a smart man, if I'd have had it modeled before me, fathers, of how to treat a woman and how to know the signs of discomfort or uneasiness, I could nurture those and take care of those. But I wasn't modeled. So I'm telling you, as fathers, you better be modeling before your children what it is to be a man of the house and to be a husband, to be the woman of the house, and to be a wife. Just because you have children does not make you a mother. So I didn't know all this, but there were times that I would touch my wife a certain way, and she would jerk from me. That's comforting for a man when his wife pulls away. And little did I know until after some time that she decided she wanted to tell me that, you remember that doctor's trip that I took when you went out for that little workup? And I told you it was nothing serious or nothing major. And I said, yes. She said, well, I had an abortion. So we decided we're going to fight through this little deal called marriage. And, you know, I'm married to a woman that was used to looking for stuff in the carpet, not dust mites. Looking for stuff in the carpet that would take her to another world. See, what you see is a billboard for why we shouldn't be who we are today. What you see is a drug addict and an alcoholic that come from broken homes and broken families and being tormented and being mistreated and mishandled and all of this stuff going on in our lives, and it was causing our hearts to become nurtured so that we would be the fine people that we are today. And one day I decided enough's enough and we're done. I'm done with this. This is garbage. This is crap. I'm out. So I packed my clothes and I put them in a suitcase like the man would do. Because the man, you going to leave. You going to sleep on the couch. You going to leave the house. Never mind. If you ain't never been there, you don't know what I'm saying. So I leave, suitcases packed in the back of my trunk, and I go to my job. I work all day with all this running through my mind and working anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day, every day. And on my way back home, I decided that I was going to call someone that I knew that understood my heart and someone that would carry my heart until her dying day. So I called my mom. And I'm talking to my mom coming back down the interstate, and she's talking to me about it, and I'm telling her, Mom, I'm just done. I can't deal with it no more. Can't put up with it anymore. I got 2 kids at the house. She's driving me absolutely nuts. Everything I do is not right. She wants more and more and more, and I can't give no more. I'm done. She's not giving anything, and I got to give everything. I'm out. Well, my mom decided that she wanted to start talking to me. Well, she didn't talk to my head. My mom talked to my heart. And I'm driving down the road, and I'm just bawling and crying, and she's going, Rocky, are you okay? Talk to me. Answer me. Yeah, Mom, I'm fine. I said, Mom, I got to go. She said, honey, I love you. I'll never forget it. I said, I love you too. And she says, I'm praying that you'll do the right thing. Driving down the road, I was actually going to Tommy's house that night. I'd already made reservations in the Blankenship Inn. I was going to hang out there until I got my apartment, and I had it worked out, planned out, good. And I decided, you know what? I'm not leaving. I went home. And to tell you how sold out I was in leaving, I went to the door and I knocked on the door. I had a key. And I knocked on the door. And she opened the door and I said, I want to see my kids. And she moved away from the door, never said 2 words to me. And I walked in and my kids were in the living room in the house that you didn't even see before we moved into. See, I'm good, boy. I got the house she never even seen and she loved it. But anyway, I go in and I'm talking to my kids and I'm going, you know, Daddy loves you. He'll do anything for you. And I mean anything. Because he loves you that much. They wasn't so sure what was going on at the time. So after having a conversation with my kids, I went back to my wife and I said, okay, here's the deal. I'm not going. If you want to leave, you pack your bags and you hit the street. But other choice words, wasn't a Christian. Hard to believe. But you can pack up, you can hit the road. I'm not going. I'm not going either. And I said, I want you to understand something, and I want you to hear me very clearly. You will not take my kids away from me and live through it. Y'all have to understand, I was in hatred, and I meant every word I said. There were other conversations that my wife and I would have during this process of 12 years trying to figure out whether or not we wanted to do this thing marriage or not. And one of those comments and statements, I'll say statements, that I made to my wife, I said, if I ever catch you cheating on me, I'll kill you and him too. You didn't know me back then. I meant every word. I said, man, I'd come across the street to fight you. It didn't matter to me. Well, we go through this life called marriage for 12 years. Man, it was just bliss. The rose petals, you could walk on them and they would just come right back up. After you walk, I mean, it was just awesome. Marriage was wonderful. And something happened somewhere, and my wife decided, I don't know why, she was going to church. Well, I was brought up in church. I knew about God. I knew His Word. I knew His Scriptures. I knew it all. So I wasn't about to challenge any of it. Go ahead. My wife takes off and goes to church. Well, I don't know, for whatever the reason, she decided she was going to get saved. So she decided to get saved. I wasn't interested. I heard my dad, you either do it all the way or you don't do it at all. Fathers, you better nurture your children. You better let them know they don't have to be perfect to serve God. It's better to serve God with a mentality of imperfection than to not serve God at all and be perfect. I wasn't having nothing of it. I'm not interested. It was like a Sunday argument. Some of you women are just hard-headed. If a man says no, just leave it alone. Every week it was the same thing. Hey, you going to church this morning? What did I tell you last week? Go to church. Have a good time. I'm not going. It was an argument every Sunday morning. Man, I hated it. You would make me mad all day because you wanted to go to church. After some time going to church, there was a Sunday morning that the children were having a Christmas program or a program, can't remember. And my daughter comes to the bedside. She woke me up. I still don't know if you put her up to this. She woke me up and she said, Daddy. I said, yeah, baby. She said, I put your suit on the bed. It's time for church. What? I got up. She's 4 years old. I got up, went to the bathroom. I'll save you details. Took a shower. I put my suit on. We went to church. Now we sat in the back. And he's sitting up front. I'm going to sit right here. And when church is over, we're leaving. Man, I went back the next Sunday. We sat in the back. Oh, I sat like most of y'all. Keep on playing. Keep on playing. I went back again the next Sunday. I wasn't professing to be no Christian. I didn't put no facade on like y'all do. A facade. You come in trying to show everybody that you got a coat on and you ain't got nothing on. It's telling somebody something that you ain't. I didn't do that. I wasn't the nice person in church. Trust me. I didn't come, oh, it's so good to see, like most of y'all. Lord bless you. No, I didn't. I come in, sit on the back seat. Before preachers say amen. Boom. There was one time I was walking out. I'll never forget it. Because he changed some stuff up and he decided that he was going to be praying to dismiss while he walked down the aisle. I look up and he's going by me, and I went out the other door. 2 doors. One Sunday, and women, listen, stop corralling around doorways. Move if you're going to talk. There's people like me that want to get out. I look up and there's a whole group of women hanging out at this back door, and I'm going, my dad did teach me to respect my elders and honor those that are over me, and so I understood that I couldn't just. So I walked by and shook my hand. So what do you think? I said, I don't know what I think, and I walked out. So I played hardball for a while because that's what was modeled before me. That was how you was a man. Next thing you know, man, I'm setting up in behind my sister, and they like 4 or 5 rows back off the front, and I'm going, man, this is stupid. I started to enjoy church. Man, they had a banging praise and worship. Loved it. Off the hook. One day, for whatever the reason, I decided I was going to go to the altar and get saved. I don't know what happened. Don't know why. But that's where I went. Needless to say, man, I've looked at my watch twice. Needless to say, we began going to church, and my dad taught me that if you're going to serve God, you serve God 100%. So we served God 100%. We didn't just stay home because we felt like it. Uh-oh. Church was on, we were in. That's the way it worked. Not because that was a religious facet of our Christianity. It was because we were scared to miss a word that could possibly change our life. So we hungered. We hungered for church. Well, I didn't know why. She didn't know why. Next thing you know, she's choir and she's this, and I'm ushering, then I'm armor bearer, and all this stuff is happening. And next thing you know, we're doing marriage ministry. And dude, we opened up our eyes, and we were at the church all week long, loving it, serving God with everything we had in us. We loved the people. We loved God. We loved ourselves. We were still working on our marriage. I know it's hard for y'all to believe. Man, we come into church like, yeah. God bless you. We were having to minister to people in our fallacies, in our own disappointments, in our own struggles. We had to smile all the time and just love on people and show people God's love and just keep on and keep on and keep on, and not understanding where God was taking us. We had no clue. But we were trying. God fixed this marriage. Man, I'm ready to go. I'm ready for my wife to say, I'm sorry for being the mean wife. I was waiting. Never come. Man, what's going on? Man, God, I'm trying to treat her right. Doing things and stuff and all this. And one day my wife went to the altar by herself. Remember when I told you that she had gone through those years from 7 to 16? She still struggled with any man in authority. Rightfully so. Men, you disgust me. To steal from a child, you disgust me. And I know it's on Facebook and I know it's on YouTube. That's why I said it. Not once, not twice, but I'm going to say it a third time. Men, you disgust me. Steal from a child. Scar a child for the rest of their life. Don't know how to wrap her mind around having a husband that loves her, still fighting. Go to the altar. God broke her. Didn't break her. God broke it. He broke that spirit. A different woman, I'm here to tell you, when she come up off that altar. I seen it in the face. Something just happened. Soon I'd realize what happened. Man, my wife, she knows I don't like feet, so she done everything but wash my feet. I have let her do it like one time before, and that was just stomach turning. But I A woman that I had not seen for over 12 years of marriage. And it was my wife. It was my bride. Oh, it wasn't the woman I married. See, here we are. We're ministering to people. And we're overseeing this marriage ministry. And that wasn't because we raised our hand and said, hey, we want to do that. Matter of fact, both of us got surprised one Sunday morning sitting on. And they're going to be overseeing the marriage ministry. And we both went, what? We looked at each other and said, whoa, what happened? Well, some time goes by and we're doing that. And I'm working. She's working. I'm laying in bed one night, and it's 12 o'clock, midnight. Never forget. And my wife wakes me up in hysterics, shaking me and bawling her eyes out. I said, what is wrong with you? She said, I have to tell you this. Immediately, Satan jumped into my mind and said, just tell her to go back to sleep. Everything's good. I didn't know it was him at the time. Just tell her to go back to sleep. It's okay. You don't need to hear any of that. It's fine. No worries. I said, no, I have to tell you now. I can't go on anymore. Satan is tormenting me. Got my attention. She said, we can't do what we were called to do in our ministry if I keep this under wraps. Mind you, we had 12 years of marriage that we weren't married. We just done the I-do's. But this night at midnight, she says, I cheated on you. Now, she had already knew, because I had mentioned many times, trust me, repetition is your best friend in memorization. And I had spoke it many times. I catch you cheating, I'll kill you and him too. So we're talking about a woman that had heard that from a hateful man that she knew without a doubt she'd leave that house with the same thing she came into that house with. Nothing. Call your mom, get a taxi, get out. And she sat in that bed and she just bawling and crying. And I wanted to say something, and immediately the Holy Spirit rushed my room. And he silenced me for an hour. I could not talk. I laid in the bed while she cried and had her head on my chest for an hour. And it kept going over in my head out of Matthew. If you can't forgive those who sin against you, my Father in heaven cannot forgive you. Just kept playing. I've heard so many people tell me they've been in the presence of God. And I've heard some of y'all talk about being in the presence of God. And with that but that ordeal that took place that night, I truly believe that was the presence of God, because there was no anger that went through my mind. There was no thought. There was no bitterness. There was no joy. There was no laughter. There was no tears. There was nothing. It was total serenity. I mean, it was as if I was a 3-month-old baby that just got milk comatose. Total peace. And finally he said, you can talk. This is what you say. I was okay with one part of it, because he said, you can tell her what she done was wrong, not right. It was wrong. I was okay with that. I was like, man, it's going to get good. Then he said, but if I can forgive her, how can you not? Different woman. See, what had taken place was covered by the blood. Who are you not to forgive? I don't care what circumstance they put you in. I don't care how bad it made you feel. I don't care how much your feelings was hurt. Who are you to not forgive? I'm not saying this is easy. It was for me, because I'm telling you now, it was divine intervention. Without no question, I actually called the pastor the next morning. I said, I need to talk to you. Call me back. And he told me later that actually when I called him, he was drinking a cup of coffee laying in his bed going, I ain't talked to Rocky for a while. I need to call him today. Left my job. Sat in front of him and said, okay, here's the deal. I'm not here for counseling. I'm not looking for anything from you. This is what I have to do. I have to tell you what took place so that I can get it off of me. And I went through the story, and I began to bawl. And then he said, I wish you wouldn't have told me any of that. I said, well, it's too late. I have. I said, you have a good day. I got to go back to work. And I left, and I never looked back. I went home that evening, and I said, I got one more question. And she said, what's that? And I said, baby, is there anything else? And she said, my God, Rocky, wasn't that enough? I said, good enough. I love you. I kissed her, and then I said, what's for dinner? And I've had people that we've spoke to and we've counseled over the years that have looked at me and said, do you think that your marriage will ever be better than what it was? Do you think you'll ever be able to? I said, my marriage is greater now than it's ever been. And here's the reason why. There you go. That's right. That took me back for a minute. Come back. But I said, you forget one thing that I've told you. We were just married for 12 years. We didn't really have a marriage. See, what people think that God restored, I'm telling you about God's grace. What people think that God restored, God created. See, you don't get it. So no, my marriage will never be the same. Never. It's going to be so much greater. And when it's not, sometimes I got to check myself and I got to turn back the clock and go, you know what it could have been? But look what it is. See, there's something about God's grace that you have to understand. No matter what you've gone through in your life, no matter what you've done in your life, Tommy, do some pads or something. No matter what someone else has done to you in life, you are not and you will not be a product of your environment unless you allow it. You have to choose. Look, I didn't deserve her. I didn't buy her. I didn't earn her. But she's mine. God give her to me. She is my rib. She is why I am where I am, because she has been my rest in brokenness, my rib. So when you try to distort me, I get to go back to my Ezer. Men, let me tell you, God thinks so much of your woman. He gave her the same name He gave Himself. He gave her the name Ezer. So when I call out for God and for my help, I expect two people come running. That's the Holy Spirit and my wife. So why do we do what we do? It's because of the grace of God, no matter what you think. I'm not here for any other reason, no matter what you think. All of this life thing that has happened in our lives ain't happened because of any other reason other than God's grace. Other than God's grace. Because it could be so much worse than what it is if it had not been. So you're sitting here this morning, for whatever the reason, you think that where you are is where you'll always be. I got news for you. God's grace. God's grace. I shouldn't be a pastor. I shouldn't be alive. Should not be married. I shouldn't have two wonderful kids. Shouldn't have a good business. You shouldn't have a good job. You shouldn't have a good husband. You shouldn't have two wonderful kids. But God's grace. I want you to get this. I'm tired of watching the enemy win. And I refuse, as a leader that's been appointed, not by you, but by God. Whether I pastor you or somebody else, I'm still a pastor. And I'll always be a pastor until I die. Because I was appointed by someone way greater than you. And I'll do this forever. Because of His grace. Not only did His grace save me and call me, it enabled me. It enabled us to get past what we have seen in our life and what we've been conditioned to in our life, to step beyond that, to move beyond that. We talked about it many times. Man, we've got to break the cycle. There's a cycle in a lot of your lives. And because you don't choose to break the cycle, you keep going around and keep wondering why. And you keep scratching your head. And it's every day, it's every month, it's every year. It's the same garbage every time you open your eyes. And it's because that most of you choose to wander in it. God's grace is bigger than that. You want to know why you struggle so much to love somebody even when they wrong you? It's because you haven't learned to receive the gift of grace. You can't operate in something that you yourself aren't willing to receive. You're still working for His grace. See, you think grace is based on performance and not position. But my God, His grace. You're sitting here right now and you're struggling. Come on. Come up front. I mean, if you're struggling with something, you come up front. And I'm telling you now, the only reason you're struggling is because you don't understand grace. I want you to position yourself this morning to receive the gift of grace. If you're struggling with addiction, come on. If you're struggling with hardships, come on. If you're struggling with financial, come on. Whatever it is that you're struggling with, come on. Stop wandering around and wonder why that cycle continues. You are who you are by the grace of God. And that's it. Nothing more. Nothing less. You can't be anybody that you want to be without the grace of God. Stop telling your children that. See, we don't teach our kids to rely on God. We teach our kids to rely on their finances, on their friendships, on their relationships, on their education, on their mindset. That's what we teach our kids to lean into. And the Bible says, come unto me, all of those that are weary and heavy laden. My God, Jesus wants to do something in your life. When are you going to let him? You'll just sit and struggle with it the rest of your life. You'll be stubborn and hard-headed the rest of your life. And you'll want to know why you're still bitter. Why is it when somebody says something, it causes something else to jump up in your heart? Something else jumps up in your mind. Anger comes back. Bitterness comes back. Unforgiveness comes back. It's because you don't understand the gift of grace. That's your only ticket. If you can't receive it, you can't give it. We went through all of this morning for one thing. Before you ever look at people and consider them better than you, I wish I had. Man, I wish my wife was. I wish my husband would have. I wish my kids would. Consider this. Consider God's grace. Because the people that you envy, the things that you lust upon, are the things that are given by God through His grace. See what you don't see. You don't see the struggle. You don't see that. You see the anointing. You see God. You don't see the arguments and the frustrations. You don't see any of that. You don't see it when Mama throws the dishpan across the kitchen. You don't see it. All you see is smiles. But it's because we choose to walk in the grace of God rather than the grace of people. I put a post on Facebook, aren't you glad that God doesn't hold us to the standards that we hold one another to?